They who forsake themselves unto cold comfort shall never truly know the depth of their own experience and the ineptitudes that they are currently involved with. You see, there are many possibilities in this life that we can experience if we are but receptive to them. However, to be super receptive to many different things, while it can be considered as a form of compassion, you have to be careful not to let your body and your mind and your soul radiate to the point in which you send off a frequency that you are willing to be walked on and walked over and to be treated as a doormat. And on this Semen Retention Sunday episode, I want to talk about the encounters of shape-shifting demons as well as reptilians on the semen retention journey. And for those of you that may not be aware of this, or that you might think that this is poppycock, I encourage you to again refrain from your negative comments and just go somewhere else, because this is a very serious topic that many people do not understand, and many people will think that they understand, but they are actually involved in a psyop. And the difference, how do you tell the difference? Well, the difference is one allows you to see the world as it is, and then the other puts you further into a dimension where spiritual warfare is always going to be imminent. Now, it is the case that demons and shapeshifters and the reptilians exist, but it is not necessarily the case that you have to coexist with these people at all times. And they're not even really people. Some of the people that you see walking around, they are simply inhabited by what you might call aliens, but I don't call them aliens. I call them interdimensional beings. And these interdimensional beings come through the mind. The mind makes it real. And this is why it is very difficult for many people to process these things, because semen retention is going to open up not only the possibility to being able to see the surface level of being able to refrain yourself and restrain yourself from women and from sexual impurities in general, but the more you go on semen retention, the more that these possibilities to see into the spiritual domain in real time or in true time, however you want to look at it, is going to be eminent. And it's going to be very much so just a matter of time. However, it doesn't need to stay this way. It doesn't need to be a dark force or a dark thing or just this crazy spiritual warfare type of thing. It doesn't need to be so out there. It can actually be very simplified and very inward as an experience. You can just simply accept this is what's the reality. Because the fact of the matter is that the more you go on semen retention, the more that these possibilities and energies are going to open up. Now, to attune yourself to these high altitude frequencies or high altitude thought patterns or thought algorithms, what you want to do is, number one, learn how to channel that energy to your upper chakras, so to speak. Now, I do not necessarily advocate for the usage of these terms, but I don't necessarily not advocate for them either. They're useful terms in regarding how to operate and live in accordance to that which is true. So to me, as long as there's a sense of alignment, you will be enlightened in that alignment. So you're looking at the light. That is what it means to be enlightened. You're gazing upon the light. So when you are doing this, one way to do this is obviously to meditate. And one way that you can do this, I'm going to show you right now, is that you can do this breath exercise where you can do this lying down, or you can do this just sitting as I am now in a chair, and you can simply breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, but do not allow any pause in between. Okay, do not allow any pause in between. This is essentially holotropic breathing. And for those of you that are not familiar with this, it's basically where you cut off the CO2, or you ensure that the CO2 is going to your brain. Now, it's not to say that you're going to damage your brain with this, it's just you're cutting off the oxygen to the degree in which that pause can allow the breath to really sit in your body, because the breath really is, well, the breath really is spirit for all intents and purposes. When people say, oh, I have so much more wind left in my soul, or I'm going to get my second wind, what that means is that they're being inspired, they're being in the spirit. Okay, all of this air around us that holds H2O, water, that holds all the necessary nutrients for us to continue to live in this organism that is the human body, that is necessary for us to understand and to really fulfill ourselves. So, without further ado, the breath technique is just to simply breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, only through the diaphragm, and very quick. And you should feel a little lighter afterwards, especially in the upper chakra energy centers and the energy fields. You might even feel a sense of like kind of topsy-turvy type of feeling. And you might need to do that for longer than just 10 to 15 seconds. What I would consider is that a good amount of time to do this would be 5 to 15 minutes. Just sitting there and doing that exercise, and then seeing what arises in your consciousness from this. So this is one way to elevate yourself into those higher frequencies, but what's going to happen is that you're going to need to learn how to reground yourself, okay? Because this is where people will start to see the shape-shifting demons and the demons that they need to cast out, or maybe the demons inside themselves, and they don't know exactly how to ground themselves again. They're so caught up in the spiritual war that they don't know how to just come back to what I call isness. It simply is. And there's a isness that occurs when you can see the spiritual warfare, but you realize that you don't need to play a factor into it. You don't need to be part of that equation. Because to be part of that equation is to still be in time fullness. You're still caught up in the loops of time. Whereas you can see it and see that it is a reality, but you can operate inwardly from a place of timelessness. And to operate inwardly from the place of timelessness, what's going to happen is that you become totally serene and at ease with existence. You become at ease with everything. And that is the essence of being enlightened, because you're gazing upon the light of existence. You're seeing that there is light and there is darkness. It is the yin and the yang, right? And there's always a little bit of darkness in the light, and there's always a little bit of light in the darkness. And that little bit of light in the darkness is you. And then that little bit of darkness in the light is also you. It's not to say that you ought to be worshipped or anything of the sort. It is simply the fact that in order to properly mature, you must move beyond belief systems. And semen retention allows you to dissolve these belief systems so much more easily and so much more understandingly in a factor and in a mindset where you are no longer caught up with the illusions of the world. Because for so long on semen retention, many people think that it's just about getting control of their sexual urges and their lust. And that is literally the beginning. That is just the beginning. That is the entry point. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that is just the beginning. there's so much more to this experience. There's so much more to this life. And there's a reason why a lot of people don't even deserve to know about a lot of these things, because number one, they simply just don't care enough about the actualities of existence. They want to believe that they believe this, and they want to know if they do believe it. The issue is that they don't want to know if they can actually know. Because to actually know something is to actually have that isness within you. There's something that inwardly has to die, has to be quote unquote sacrificed. And the story here is essentially where you have to learn that to be morally scrupulous in the endeavors of life is very bittersweet. It is a very bittersweet experience to actually have morality, because the world does not reward morality. The world does not reward light. It rewards darkness and deception. I've been very interested in reintegrating and re-energizing my martial arts experience. And so I've been practicing martial arts recently. And I was a black belt in Northern Shaolin Kung Fu by the time I was 17 years old. And there was something that was very beautiful about it. There was something that was just very serene in all of its ways. I was recalling the whole series of events, because it took me about 8 years, 7 to 8 years to get my black belt. And we call it a sash in Northern Shaolin Kung Fu. They call it, well, I say we, because I've experienced it, but we call it a sash. And something that I realized in retrospect of a lot of these martial arts experiences that I had, and of all the tournaments and the boxing and the Muay Thai and the Tai Chi, etc., listening to Qigong music as well, or Qigong, however you want to pronounce it. And I was recalling all of these experiences and reminiscing, not necessarily nostalgic. I was just trying to remember what it was like to integrate those experiences and remember the lessons that I learned along the way, because they're so important. And one of those lessons that I've learned with martial arts and reintegrating martial arts currently is that if you don't know how to properly use your body, you will not know how to properly use your mind. It is just simply a fact. And there are so much more, there's so much more to the spiritual side and the spiritual domain of life than just fighting demons or fighting spiritual warfare. Because once you get to that point of isness, when you have isness in your life, there's no need to believe in devils. There's no need to believe in demons or angels or whatever the case is, all these spiritual domains. There's no need to believe in any of these things. You don't need to believe it, because it simply is a matter of experience that these things happen and these things are moving through us. But it does not mean that, like, these people are who believe in demons, who believe in angels, who believe in spirits or aliens and such. This is all to keep people immature in their soul. It is all to keep people immature in their spirit, because they simply cannot comprehend the possibility that they can let go of these beliefs. This is not to say, again, that they're not real. It is real, but it doesn't have to be true. And that's where you have to understand truly what I'm saying here, because semen retention will allow you to see that there's a dissolution that has to occur. There's a letting go. Otherwise, you're going to get caught up in the cycle, and you're going to try to complete something when you're in the middle of it, rather than seeing the beginning at the end. And when you see the beginning at the end, that's when you're truly free, because you start to see that you never really needed to go through all this anyway. You never really needed to go through it, but you kind of had to in order to get to where you can be. I had a dream when I was about 22 years old, and I was on this beautiful golden brick road. And this was when I started semen retention, but I didn't really start semen retention. It was just, I didn't feel like watching corn for a couple weeks. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was practically on semen retention, because I didn't start practicing semen retention consciously. Like, I knew about it. I kind of got there naturally through time, but I didn't actually start practicing consciously semen retention up until about 4 years ago. And it'll be 4 years of semen retention in May of this year, and it is 2026. And so going back, this was when I was 22 years old, so 7 years ago, 8 years ago. You know what? It actually might have been a little sooner than that now that I'm thinking about it, because it was 2019. Yeah, it was 2019, so I guess it was 7 years ago. So I had a dream where I was on this golden brick road and I was surrounded by white light. And the road like looped around. This golden brick road looped around. And there was a man who was kind of skinny but had like a little bit of a belly as well, and he was wearing a feather necklace and a feather hat, and he was only wearing a grass skirt, and he was this kind of Aztecian type of character. It was almost as if this was like an Aztec elder. And I asked him where I was, and all he said was, "Ha ha ha, you had to go to there to get to here, and you had to get to here to go to there." Ha ha ha. And then I woke up from the dream. And I didn't realize the significance of the dream when I had it. But through the years and in going back and, contemplating these experiences, not out of nostalgia, because nostalgia is a drug, but out of wanting to understand the true depth behind what this meant. Well, it's very clear that we are immortal souls and we are something more. And to believe in belief systems, it puts you on a path where you're never going to get to see that you had to go to there to get to here, and you had to get to here to go to there. There's only a here because there's a there. And it's because you think that there is. Do you understand what I'm saying here? This is why meditation is important. This is understanding your energy, understanding your body, and understanding that your body is a electromagnetic satellite. Your mind is an electromagnetic satellite. That is what your nervous system is. And so you can curate your reality. You can go beyond this. You can go beyond the seeing, trying to get away from women or trying to stop watching corn and all this stuff. There's something way deeper here. And I no longer want to speak toward the people who are just at that entry point. I want to go deeper. I want to go, because I know that I'm capable of more than this. I'm capable of speaking to more people at a deeper level. And although there are and is utility to understanding the entry points, because of course they're the entry points, once you get to a certain point, you realize that there was no point to begin with. And what do I mean by that? I'm not saying that there's no point to life. What I'm saying is that milestones or ways of being, belief systems, ideologies, dogmas, They only exist because you think they exist. So with that being said, I want to thank you for coming along with me in this divine timing. And I want to thank you for your understanding. And I want to thank everybody who is in the frequency of love and understands what that actually means. So with all that being said, I hope everybody stays blessed. Check out the one-on-one sessions that I provide and offer, as well as the Godlike Mastery Initiation that I offer as well. Because the Regal Change Academy, for those that maybe don't know just yet, is closing within the next couple weeks. Well, a few weeks, I suppose. And the reason behind this is because I want to focus more on the impact that I can make in the one-on-ones and the Godlike Mastery offer that I have. I do feel as though the RCA, the Regal Change Academy, will not be closed forever. However, for the spirit of this time, it is necessary for me to reintegrate and to reevaluate and to refocus in ways in which I feel as though I can make a better and more positive impact. So with all that being said, peace. Until next time.